can't you be a man, or can't you be a woman? Can't you grow up? And then there are people who are just struggling and they don't know why. Well, sometimes it's trauma, sometimes it's not. But just in case it might be trauma, you're not quite sure, you've not identified that it is, or you are actively, your life is just one big series of events that are going from one to the next, and it's just purely traumatic for you. We are discussing dealing with trauma here today. And my guest is with me. She's not in the, well, she's in the studio virtually. Good to have Joy Uyo Adejo joining me to discuss this. Hello, Joy. How are you doing?
Hi, Somi. Hi, Nigeria Info. Hi, everyone. Hi, Abuja. Hi,
Yes.
the world.
Yes, exactly. Well, thank you. Good to have you here, Joy. I hope you had a great day so far.
I'm excited to be here. Yes, well, I'm excited to be here virtually, but also physically in Abuja.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's get straight into the conversation. Just in case you're wondering and you're not quite sure, maybe you feel like you want to be able to have a more wholesome participation in the conversation today, you can join us live. We are streaming on Facebook at Nigeria Info Abuja. Right, so just look for Nigeria Info Abuja on Facebook and on YouTube. We are streaming live on those platforms. You can join in on the conversation. You can send in messages. You can ask your questions there, your thoughts, or whatever, as well as the phone lines, which we will be opening up in the course of the conversation with Joy. All right, let's talk dealing with trauma. I know that I had a bit of a session with you on the sunny side, Joy, but we're hoping to. It's nighttime now, so it's no holds barred. It's a no holds barred conversation, and we're going to really get into all of it. What is trauma? Let's start with that.
So, well, the dictionary would define trauma as a deeply distressing or disturbing experience. Basically, something that's distressing, something that has taken a toll on your mind, something that... Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
So anything that has caused distress, stress, basically, negatively. Let's break it down to that point.
Okay.
If an experience has caused stress negatively, I don't think, well, there's positive stress when it produces positive results. But when you experience something that causes negative stress, that has negative effects, it's trauma. And sometimes trauma is known, and sometimes it's not even known. So one can be traumatized but unaware of trauma. But I'm sure that as we keep going on in the conversation, we'll be able to unravel these things. But in simple terms, trauma is an experience that has caused distress and a disturbing feeling.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So just to add to that, from what I'm seeing here, and please correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of trauma comes from exposure to an incident or a series of events that are emotionally disturbing. And now the problem is not the exposure to it, is the fact that it then affects someone's ability to function. And that ability can be affected mentally, physically, socially, emotionally, and even the spiritual well-being of the person. Would it be right to say that?
Sorry, I'm struggling to hear you.
Oh dear. Okay, let's take it again. I was asking, right, that trauma typically comes from exposure to an incident or a series of events that are emotionally disturbing or life-threatening. But it's not just the exposure to that; it's the fact that that then affects somebody's ability to function mentally, physically, socially, emotionally in one or more aspects of life.
Both.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Both ways. And funny thing is, it can be both ways. So one can be affected emotionally and be unaware that they are affected emotionally. One can be affected mentally and not even be aware that they are affected mentally. So yes, it goes both ways, where one is aware of the effect of the trauma and in the case where one is not even aware that they are traumatized.
Okay, we're going to get into your experiences as much as you permit me to, a little bit, and I think it's important for us to do that. And let me explain why, just in case you're listening and you're not sure. Joy is an author.
I'm still struggling to hear you.
Okay, we'll see what we can do about that. Okay, is it better now? Is it better now, Joy?
I'm straining, but
okay, all right. I'll get my technicians to sort it out. But I'm just going to keep going, and then maybe if it's not working at all, we'll consider switching platforms. All right. I was saying that I would need you to share from some of your experiences, and I was explaining why to the listeners. Joy is somebody that has experienced this trauma on quite a number of levels, but she's been able to overcome, so to speak. She's been able to rise like a phoenix from the ashes of trauma, and that's why it's important that she's here sharing with us today. She has a book out. It's called God Heals Trauma, and it just went through like some very detailed steps that people can take, which we're going to get into in the course of the conversation. But let me come back to you, Joy. Any particular instances you would like to share? I mean, I'm reading up here, and it's saying traumatic experiences can range. There's childhood neglect as a form of trauma or as a cause of trauma. There's poverty, and these are things that the average Nigerian is listening and being like, poverty care, trauma. There is that, and then they're more the more how would I put this now? They are the more deeper ones. You have violence in the community. You have terrorism. Some of the things that are familiar to certain parts of the country. You have racism.
Abuse, physical abuse.
I was getting there. You have physical, sexual, emotional abuse.
Yeah.
You even have living with a family member that has a mental health issue or substance use disorders as a cause of trauma. And then the one that people can relate with more often as one of the more prevalent ones is sudden and unexplained separation from a loved one, which can come in the form of the passing of a loved one as well. So we have all of these as experiences that can be traumatic. But let's come back to you. Let's talk to you about yours and why it's important for you to be able to tell people how to deal with trauma.
So we're talking about one of my experiences.
I mean, anyone you'd like to share, one more, anyone, just so that we can see how you were able to deal with some of these issues, and then we can share.
Yes. So one of the things I'd like to share about is interrelationship with friends. For me, growing up, I had very few friends. I had an eye condition as a little girl where I looked very closely at things. If you notice me even now, and trust me, I'm much better. I mean, I'm much, much, much better. So you can imagine what I was like when I was younger. Literally, I put things right in my face when I want to view them because of the eye condition. I would walk straight into the TV, like literally be standing in front of the TV screen for me to get satisfaction of viewing, or seeing the screen. And for many reasons, I had very few friends. But I wanted to be, I wanted to be friends with people. That seclusion kind of created a void that I needed filled. And so I was thinking I needed to do so much, much, much more to compensate so that I can have friends. Because even in nursery school, in primary school, I remember not having friends. They used to call me Undertaker.
Wow.
So I was bullied in school. I was bullied in school. There's a wrestler called Undertaker, and there's the way he looks, and so they literally likened me to Undertaker. And you know the funny thing, wrestling, WWE was a common thing in most houses, while we're younger. And I was particularly scared of The Undertaker,
Wow.
the wrestler.
So for you to be
Meanwhile,
called
I was
that.
called, so I was called The Undertaker, who is the very wrestler that I was scared of. Anyway, so if other children are calling you who you're scared of, you know that they are scared of you. And I felt like, oh no, I needed people around me. I needed friendship. And sadly, that wasn't the case. And so I grew up being very independent, very independent, that is, feeling like I do not need people because it was my way of coping with rejection. And then at the same time, overcompensating. So I'm trying to go out of my way to be there for anybody who would, try to come close, and I'm just trying to keep you at all costs. I'm condoning bad characters. I'm condoning disrespect. I'm condoning everything that I should not condone because I'm just trying to have relationship with anybody who would recognize me or want to be close to me. So there were two things. It was me growing to the point where I eventually felt like, you know what, people probably don't like me, and then I need to also guard my heart so I'm not opening my heart up to people so that I'm not hurt. But then that brought me to a very dangerous place because I started feeling like there's nobody there for me. Meanwhile, I somewhat shut the door as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you, I mean, this is one thing that has kind of created multiple responses, and that's what trauma can do. So you can experience one thing, which is probably rejection in some way, and then the resultant effect is you being hypersensitive in your reaction, being irritable. When people are trying to come close to you, you're trying to push away, and all that. So, but then what was my saving grace was I got to the point where I felt like, I didn't have anybody. But that was a lie, because even when people started trying to come close, I would push them away because I felt like I'd spent so much time being alone. When I needed people, I was alone. So now I'm good over myself. And now you're coming, so I reject your love. So I basically was rejecting what I still wanted. And then when conversations come up, you hear things like, oh, well, I'm basically a one-man army. But that's not true, because trauma got me to a point where I became, quote-unquote, Miss Independent, one-man army, everything that signifies being alone, but it was just a response to trauma. How I had to recognize that I was pushing people away because of the experiences I've had. I had to recognize that, okay, now I've been hurt by people, which has caused me to lose trust in people. So maybe I should then look deeper, because I was trying to overcompensate.
Yeah.
I was letting every Tom, Dick, and Harry come into my space. I didn't have any guard. I didn't have healthy boundaries. I didn't have any boundaries. So the people who I had let come in were people who were trying to abuse the fact that I didn't have boundaries,
Yeah.
And then I was hurt, and then I generalized the pain and said, you know what, everybody is in this category. So it took me, number one, taking responsibility to heal, to want to heal, and then just acknowledging that, okay, this is from some place and I need to find it. So I acknowledged it, I became aware of it, and then I took actions. Actions like forgiving those who have hurt me, discovering who I am, and see, you would be surprised. These were things that happened to me as a child, just being bullied and told, children telling me I'm ugly, and all that stuff. And I grew up just believing it because it was the environment I stayed in. And this is why a lot of people need to understand the background that you're from plays a great role, in who you perceive yourself as, how you see yourself. It took me also experiencing God's love, just, also knowing who he says I am. Because judging from people's perspective of me, it wasn't anything good. It wasn't anything that I, valuable. And if anyone had something good to say, it was because it was a means to an end. It was because they wanted something else or they wanted to exploit me. But I had to learn who I truly am, not, who God created me to be. Discover the value in me. I sing. I'm a very creative person, but I never felt like anything I did was good enough. And that was because the majority of people I spent time with gave me the impression that I myself wasn't good enough. So I needed to know me for myself. It was a whole world of self-discovery. So, like I said, it came from awareness, acknowledgement, and then I had to take actions. Well, there's so much more. There's so many things, so many other experiences that I've had, but I kind of felt like this is one that we can start from.
Oh, I mean, and it's a great starting point because a lot of people listening maybe sometimes associate trauma with grown-up experiences, maybe like people who are much older. I took the time to list out quite a number of things that can cause trauma, and childhood neglect was the first thing that I mentioned. Now, yours was not necessarily a case of neglect. It was just abuse and bullying that you were experiencing at home. Now,
I was neglected. I was neglected because.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was the only daughter, and I had 4 brothers, 2 younger, 2 older, and they wanted to. They were kids. Boys would want to play with boys, and I was different. I didn't know that was what it was. I didn't know that boys wanted to play with boys. It just felt, I felt rejected. I felt not wanted. And my parents, being clergy people, spent so much time doing clergy work. And there wasn't that balance, with the home front, which is something that, by the grace of God, we would correct, because we don't have to go in the same circle that we came from. We can break the circle, and this neglect, this whole feeling, one may think, oh, it's just one event, oh, it's just one, phase. It led me into relationships with the other gender. Yes. Because I was looking for acceptance just anywhere. I was willing to marry a man who was abusive in so many ways, verbally, emotionally, even to some extent physically, because I just felt like I wanted my own person. I wanted my own community. I wanted my own clan. I wanted my own. So I was seeking love anywhere that I wanted it to be found. And I'm telling you, there are people who you see who become obsessed and they become manipulative. Yeah. There are women that you see and you be asking, leave the man alone and go meet and that. In their head, they're saying, this is where we want to be. This is who we call home. And we don't care. We want to be here. Because to some extent, they have felt some type of neglect. Trauma bonding. They found one thing. It may be they have, this person is doing 99 things wrong, but there's just that one thing that kind of soothes that pain that they do not even know exists. And so they're clinging onto someone who obviously is not good for them just because they're trying to fill that space. I tell you, it could be just one thing, but it spreads out. Trauma is a multidimensional, has its multidimensional expressions. I tell you, it could just be one thing that spreads into many things.
Okay, just picking up from where you left off just now, is it safe to say then that somebody who experiences, I mean, we started from that example and I'm sort of going from there because you said that example of neglect and bullying as a child and just not feeling noticed or loved led you to other experiences which were also traumatic for you. So is it possible that childhood neglect will definitely give way to childhood trauma brought on by neglect will definitely give way to emotional, physical, and even sexual abuse? Is it like a given?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay. We're going to come back. We're going to come back to that. But while just dealing with some of all of these things, at what point did that first awareness hit you that, oh my God, I am traumatized? At what point did it first occur to you?
Pain. Oh my goodness. Pain is painful.
Are we talking physical pain now or emotional pain? Which one?
Emotional pain is painful.
Hmm.
I always say I have a funny thing I say. Heartbreak is too expensive. I cannot afford it. It's too expensive. So this was I had always been this girl who would say the first person I'm in a relationship with will be the person I will get married to. So I was 21 and I was just looking to be seen. I just wanted to be seen. And to be honest, we must realize that traumas that we've experienced from childhood, right? Even when we're healing, these triggers keep coming because we are in a falling world. We are in a world where you would keep experiencing things that are similar or things that are close to it may not be as exact as what you had experienced before because, as you grow over time, you learn boundaries and so on and so forth.
Yep.
But you could hear stories about stuff you can, people can act towards you in a certain way that reminds you of a childhood trauma. So even while you're healing, you'll be exposed to these things. And the proof that you are healing is proof that the way the trigger expressed itself before is not the same way it would affect you now. I started dating this guy who I thought I was going to get married to because he was the first guy that I dated. And my goodness, for me, it was this innocent girl, 21 years old, with this guy, 30 years old. And I mean, not knowing anything about, man and woman relationship or even being physical, because I also believe in waiting till marriage before having sex. Meanwhile, this uncle was a Bible thumping brother. I mean, 1, 2, he'll quote a scripture, 1, 2. So I thought that I was in a safe place, although I saw some red flags, but I was just like, this thing, let's just enter this thing. Let's just, also just looking for something to fill that void in me. This was my own experience.
Right.
And this was how I got to the point of healing. I had, hoped to find succor in this guy. I hoped to find home in this man. And once he realized that I wasn't open to having sex before marriage, he started being very hostile. He started being emotionally abusive, started being, he tried to rape me once, and then he would be cheating and be bold about it. So he would call and say, because you're unwilling to give me sex, I am going out to have sex with someone, and I just wanted to let you know. And I was still in the relationship for about a year. And he would bring girls over to the house. I was trying to still prove a point that I am enough for you to change your bad ways and become good because I am worth it. So I was looking for my worth in his eyes. So I stayed there, which is still trauma response. So I stayed there and I was hoping that he would see me and say, this girl is a good thing and I'm going to do better and be better for her. But sadly, he just kept at it until he knocked a girl up and she became pregnant. And it was very problematic. One thing led to another. And basically, the relationship had to end. And after it ended, I was so broken. You see, a lot of people feel that only negativity comes out of negative experience. experiences. But look, purpose can come out of pain. There is beauty even in our mess. And it took me this level of brokenness to see that I was searching for wholeness in a place where I couldn't find it. Because I still kept feeling like I was rejected by family in some way. My family was totally unaware because, I mean, my parents were clergy and, are clergy, and just kept feeling that they were doing the work of the Lord, and my brothers were just being boys and kids, so nobody felt like they were doing anything wrong. But I was seeking some form of completeness in human compassion. And so I kept feeling like it is this completeness that I'm feeling is in a human being, but it is not. So after that heartbreak, I realized that, it's not in this man. But then it started by that first heartbreak got me hardened. I became bitter. I became tough, not in a good way. I became hardcore. I became unaccessible, and I wasn't open to relationships. I was just very bitter and hurt. And you meet some people and then you wonder, why is this woman so rude? Why is this person so this? Why is this person so that? I tell you,
aggressive.
There is pain that they have encountered, and they have held onto this pain so much, they have not let it go. And because they have, held on to this pain so much, they themselves have become pain. There are people that you encounter and they just feel like you're with them and you're so uneasy. They just feel like you're uncomfortable around them. It's because if you cut them open, you would see hurt that they're holding on to. They've not healed. They're like a walking wound. I'm sorry to say, such graphic, but they're just so wounded on their inside. All they can give off is what they are inside, and I got to the point where I was just like, you know what, everybody's terrible. I met this other guy who was trying to reach out, and instead of, doing due diligence and getting it right this time, I was now looking for someone who would only treat me right. So if you only spoke nicely to me, I would then choose you.
If you only agreed with what you said, if he didn't disagree with you, if you always agreed with what you said, or you always agreed with your opinion, was that part of it?
Yes. So I was looking for, so the first relationship was abusive. So I was looking for something that looked not like that, but I wasn't willing to do the due diligence because I wasn't even aware that I needed to do much more due diligence. But I was in the process of healing. So I knew that, okay, next up, this person should be kinder to me. So I started dating this other person who came and said nice things to me. But talk is cheap. So the first relationship, I learned that I did not look. The next relationship, I looked, but I didn't look well enough. See? So I began to learn from, I was a different person entirely. But I realized that different encounters were bringing different versions of me out. I started seeing even sides of me that I didn't know, because, everyone has their own flaw that these experiences expose you to, and you can either decide to acknowledge them and be a better person, or feel pain and say, since everybody is bad, then I can as well be bad. So it was pain that brought out healing. To be honest, I started seeking God because I felt like, okay, so I went this way, this person hurt me. I went this way, this person hurt me. There has to be something else. And to be honest, it led me to God. And truly, God is the one who heals trauma.
Okay, we're going to get to what deliberate steps. I mean, you talked about awareness, recognizing that you need to take responsibility for yourself and then get on the path to healing. And we're going to look at some steps, step by step. I want to refer back to your book for that. But before that, let's look at, you've been talking about trauma responses. What are some common reactions to trauma that people would experience, whether in relationships or in life generally, that would make them recognize that, oh, okay, I'm actually traumatized and I need to seek help or healing?
Okay, so because we're in Africa, and a lot of things, a lot of factors, like you earlier said, poverty leads to many traumas. There are things that we laugh about now where the kind of food we ate, maybe eating the same thing morning, afternoon, and night, turning semo into akamu, all kinds of weird things that poverty caused, our parents to do, and it was just a bid to survive.
Yep.
There's so many things that are trauma responses, and I would mention one.
Okay.
Or there's so many, but as time goes on, we'll probably mention a lot more. But one is, if you have a way to experience comfort, but you choose discomfort, you are traumatized.
Explain.
So if someone says, okay, there's a nice hotel, it's beautifully furnished, it costs 100,000 naira, and I want you to relax. You've had such a stressful week or a stressful day. I've paid 100,000 naira for, let's say, 2 nights. Let's try to reduce it a little. I paid 100,000 naira for 2 nights in a beautiful hotel, and I want you to just relax. Every food you want to eat is made available. Just go relax for 2 days, rest your mind, and come out refreshed. If you choose not to, and you say, give me the money instead.
No, Joy. You see that one? That one just... see, I'm on that table. What do you mean?
Look, you can't say no because that's you saying...
What do you mean? I would like to have the money.
This is also a response to trauma, because a lot of people also are traumatized but are living in denial because they are on survival mode. They are used to suffering. So even when, because this 100,000, for instance, I'm the one saying, oh, I'm taking you out to, this hotel to stay for 2 nights to rest because you've been stressed. You didn't have that 100,000 naira. Nobody gave you the 100,000 naira. This is a gift to you without your effort, without your input. This is just an opportunity for you to receive luxury. But because your mind has not come to the point where you would tell yourself, I deserve luxury. And there shouldn't be a reason. Like some people feel that, oh, rest is only when you have suffered a long time, then you can rest. And that comes from trauma from our parents. Maybe your parents won't let you sleep when you want to sleep. They would tell you to wash the plate after washing the plate, do this after doing this, do that. And if they see you just sitting idle, they will ask you, why are you not go and wash the wall? Or do you understand? You have to you cannot just sit down. And that's why you see Nigerians are so hardworking outside Nigeria.
I mean, some of us would call that.
It can be.
Some of us would call that upbringing, not trauma.
Say again?
Some of us would call that upbringing, not trauma.
It's still trauma because it's distressing.
Okay, we're going to come back to some other trauma responses. This first one that you have brought is causing major trouble for me. I mean, I deserve luxury, but sitting in a hotel right now is not my priority. So what's wrong with collecting the money? We will. But my phone is ringing. Let's take some calls and then we'll get back to the discussion. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Somi, this is Abdul back from my summer. On the respect of the conversation you are having with your own guest in the studio, actually you have made a point on the respect of the what you call her, about the trauma, the poverty. It's one of the things. But thank God, with the counselors we have and the massive awareness, that conversation makes me 10, 15 years ago. There is so many castigation on the respect of HIV virus. Those people with HIV infection, in their own family house, they face so many rejection that leads them to even lose their life. It's not the HIV that makes them to lose their life. It's the trauma that they face in their family houses. From the cup you use, the plate you use, the room you sleep, many people don't want to go there. Their own thinking is that because of they are affected with that virus, so if anybody mingle with you or this whatever is going to be affected, which is not like this. With so many of the NGOs that comes up on the respect of awareness of HIV virus, the counselors, it helps a lot on the respect of the trauma. Trauma is done in different ways. When you put something in mind, I want to make money, start doing something, and the money didn't come, and you are thinking out of the box, which of my relatives or friends that I'm going to condole to share idea with him to seek for help, if he can offer help for me.
Okay.
Along the line, if you cannot be able to find any one of those relatives or friends to help you, you will now find yourself into another trauma.
All right,
So
then.
actually, yeah, that's what I feel. As the conversation still on, let me hear about, there are a lot to talk about. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Abdul.
Very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I wish I could hear him clearly.
Oh
I wish
dear.
I could hear him clearly.
You didn't hear him?
But I want to add something just very quickly.
Okay.
That trauma is not a special thing that selects people. So, there's some people who are traumatized and there's some people who are not. We are in a world where good and evil happens to everyone. Literally, I don't think there is a person, not even a baby, that was just born. The baby coming out of the mother's womb is traumatizing the baby itself. That's a traumatic experience. Stress coming out of a small hole, and all that. So trauma happens to every living soul. So what I think what the awareness is meant to bring about is the consciousness of our own strength to deal with it, to grow out of it, or to grow out of the negative effect of the trauma, to utilize this weakness and cause strength to come out of it.
Okay.
So that's that. I just want to say that before we move on.
Okay, that was a good one right there. But the caller basically was highlighting some other things. I think he mentioned stigmatization. So people living with certain ailments or diseases and how they're stigmatized and how that in itself can trigger trauma. That's basically what he talked about. But thank you for bringing that clarity to the conversation. Before we go back to that table shaking reaction to trauma, I'm seeing something here that I think is affecting a lot of people as a trauma response. It says people tend to lose hope for the future in response to trauma. There's also feeling distant or detached, which you sort of explained as one of the things that you ended up doing in response to trauma. There are a few others here, and I'll just run through them very quickly, and then we'll come back to you. Some other responses include being unable to concentrate or make decisions, always being jumpy and getting startled easily at sudden noises. There's also feeling on guard and alert all the time. And for some people, they have dreams and memories that constantly having these dreams and memories that upset them. For other people, they're having problems, always having problems at work or at school. And I know, especially for those of us who are working, when you have those things, you're just feeling like, oh, everybody is mad except for me. I'm the only sane person here. Sometimes it might be that it is your response or your behavior that is the problem. I'm also going to juxtapose and put this in the situation of a relationship. There are people who are constantly going from one relationship to the next, one relationship to the next, and they are thinking, nobody just understands me, nobody gets me. There is also that as well. And then there's a tendency to avoid people and places and things that are related to that traumatic event that you had. Now, so just in case you're not quite sure if you are traumatized or you're dealing with some form of trauma, check your avoidance of certain people, certain places, and certain things. You just might be able to find that there's a common factor bringing them together, and that might be the thing that caused your trauma. So again, the most important thing, like our guest has said, is being able to, and I think the first point is even acknowledging that there is an experience that is not normal that you have gone through. And it's only when you acknowledge it that you can then take responsibility and say, I have power over this and I'm going to heal from it and I'm going to get better. There are physical responses as well to trauma and a few others, but let me come back to Joy. You are more versed in these things, especially when it comes to dealing with it. I'm not saying you're more versed in trauma. I'm saying you're just better versed in dealing with with some of these things. All right, so so you've talked to me about when you first of all recognized that you were you needed to heal. Now let's talk about the healing journey. Are there any practical steps that you took to help you heal? And I say this because I also recognize that sometimes healing can be a year-long project. Sometimes it can take much longer than that. Sometimes you're always in that place where I'm thinking about people who have experienced sexual abuse that caused trauma for them. Some people it's physical, domestic abuse, you know. You're in a relationship where you're constantly being beaten and all of that. And sometimes it's not even just the physical one. I know somebody who went through an experience in her marriage, and when she was leaving, everybody kept asking, did he beat you? Did he beat you? And she said no. And they were like, so why did you leave? Like, what did he do that was so bad that you left? And she was trying to explain that she experienced psychological and emotional abuse. And I look at her years down the line after leaving that relationship, and she's still struggling to heal. It took her a while for her to realize that, first and foremost, she had developed self-esteem issues. This is somebody that was, before this experience, a very confident person, so sure of herself. You know, she would walk into the room and you would know that she's there, and it's not because she really didn't. She just had a carriage around her. But after going through that experience, you know, she just realized she had self-esteem issues. Meanwhile, people had been telling her, if he did not beat you, then he did not abuse you now. So why did you leave? So talk to me about the steps, please. And yeah, let's just hear from you.
Okay. So number one, I'm going to still reiterate that people should not come and claim trauma as like a badge. Because I think that's what started happening when the mental health awareness started. Because people just began to say, oh, my trauma, oh, my this and that, and not taking responsibility. The awareness of it is so that responsibility can be taken, not just so that you can say, oh, well, this is the reason why this is this way and I'm leaving it this way. So that would be irresponsible. And an excuse for doing evil. It will be excuse for recklessness.
Yep.
Practical steps. I must say, trauma has levels. And there is nothing natural about there is nothing, I'm going to say that again, there's nothing natural about forgiving. There is nothing natural about forgetting hurt.
When
it takes a supernatural power.
Okay.
It takes a supernatural power to enable you believe that you can go through that you can forget, heal, and maybe have a relationship with such person that has nothing to do with hate. Because you can say, I severed myself from somebody who hurt me, but you still have hate in your heart. That hate in your heart is killing you. Because every time, I'm not talking far-fetched stuff. I'm talking about my own self. Every single time I thought of this person who hurt me, I felt a physical pain in my chest. As in physical pain in my chest. Every single time I thought of the person. How much, when I see the person, my entire day is ruined. Meanwhile, yes, I had succeeded in severing myself from the person, not having anything to do with the person. But the fact that I couldn't let go at the time was also detrimental to my own well-being. So I had to ask God for help, because sometimes the people who hurt you will never be remorse. I repeat, sometimes the people who hurt you will never be remorse. So my question will be, do you then imprison yourself in pain and hurt and hand the key over to these people and say, whenever you are remorse, I will collect this key and unlock myself from this prison and come out? No, I would not give them that much power. And this, as simple as it is to explain, it is not simple to do without supernatural help of God. I'm a Christian, and so I would speak from the standpoint that God heals trauma because it is tested and tried. I had to get to the point where I knew that everything I had tried to do it on my own, and it led to denial. That was where I would say, I've forgiven the person. But then start up a conversation about something relating to that situation. I will bring the story up with every chance I have, as if it happened yesterday. I will tell, look, at some point, my friends will say, Joy, you've told us this story before. You say you are forgiven, or you say you are forgotten, but you have said this is the 175th time you have said this. We know, in fact, they'll be finishing the line for me, because I said I had forgiven, but I was living in denial. I was living in denial of the fact that I had not healed. And this is because healing exposes you to the wound that you have. Most of the time when we want to heal without looking at the injury. We want to heal in absenteeism. I don't know if that's the right word. We want to be absentee healed people. So we want to be absent from the process of healing. But the true healing needs your present consciousness of the process of healing, and it is painful. It hurts. Because, I mean, imagine someone has had an accident and broke his leg. You can't say, just rub something on the body and leave the bone that is broken to heal itself. No. There's something called improper healing. If one's arm is broken, let me use something else. If one was burnt with fire and it was not carefully treated, that scar will remain for life. Meanwhile, if one was burnt and it was treated correctly, it would heal, and at some point, you may not even see the scar at all because it healed properly. Sometimes because we are trying to avoid being present in the process of healing, we would rather choose to heal wrongly. And that still leads to pain.
So you're saying that
we're not functioning correctly. We're not functioning rightly.
So you're saying...
Steps I had...
Okay, I was
Go
gonna
ahead.
ask. I was gonna ask about improper healing, but let's hear you get into the steps, and then maybe we can revisit that. Go ahead, please.
So the first step, like I said before, was awareness. I had to be aware that, look, Joy, evil has happened to you. But as a result of this evil, even you yourself have brought upon yourself more evil through different actions. Because sometimes we're quick to say, oh, my father did this. Okay, my father was not a rich man. When other people were going to school, my father was in the farm. When other people were doing what they were doing, my father was drinking and so on and so forth. Now my friends' parents are rich, but my father is poor. Therefore, I am poor. People have decided to hinge their present situation to someone else's action without taking responsibility for their own actions in their present situation.
Ha,
So,
Joy. No, wait.
meanwhile-
You just confused me with that one. Please say that again.
I will go again.
Okay.
I will go again. So I'll use the example of one's father who was not educated when he had the chance to be educated. However, this young man grows up and says, my friends are from wealthy homes because their father did something with their life. Meanwhile, there are other people who grew up in poor backgrounds and grew to be something themselves. So most times there are people who would, instead of taking responsibility for their present situation, they would rather use something called the blame game to stay and justify why they are still in the same position that they are in, even though, yes, it was influenced by someone's action. So yes, their father was poor, and so they grew up in a poor home. However, you don't need to remain poor. You can grow in knowledge. You can grow in skill. You can say to yourself, I'm deciding I will not be poor, and I will find a way that is legitimate. I will go and serve under a rich man and learn the ways of the rich. But people would say, it was because of this and this and this I became that. Basically, excuses.
Okay.
So number one, steps, being aware that, yes, this is the situation I am in. Number two, acknowledging it, because we just had a conversation where we talked about a table that you are on and you are aware that it is a thing, but you refuse to acknowledge it.
That is a trauma response, yes. We will come back to that.
You refuse to acknowledge it. So there are people who are aware that there's something off, or they may not even see it as off. They may just be aware that this is a thing in their life. For instance, I hate help. Someone can say, I hate receiving help. I don't like anybody to help me. I don't want anybody to help me. It is because probably somebody has helped them and rubbed it in their face and spoke about helping them and made them look poor and made them look weak and made them look needy and brought them down so badly in disdain and treated them so poorly. They decided, you know what, if I die, I die, but I would never receive help. Meanwhile, we are in a world that no one is an island. You must receive help. It's a must. You must receive help from the villager who will farm tomato that you will go to the market to go and buy from. So it's just a selective refusal, a selective, I'm trying to find the right word, rejection. You're saying, I reject help, but there's no human being on the surface of the earth that does not need help. So one can be aware, but they can decide whether they acknowledge it or not.
Okay.
So I became aware, and you must also learn to be patient with yourself, because just because you are aware and you are willing to acknowledge it does not mean it is easy. Again, this is where the help of God comes in, because sometimes there is a relapse. Because you're saying, okay, I will forgive somebody. Maybe you have anger issues. You throw tantrums. you break glass, you cut yourself, you'd, you know, respond in such, you speak violently, act violently, you know, you may say, okay, I'm aware of this and I'm trying to learn anger management. Through number one, first of all, you need to be aware that that is a spirit that needs to be expelled. And then, but first of all, you need to know, okay, this is a thing, I'm aware of it. I acknowledge that I have it, and I acknowledge that there are triggers. So if someone insults me, if I respond, once I begin to speak, the anger will begin to move from the tip of my toe up to the strand of my hair on my head. But if I keep quiet and walk away, God save that person. So how about we start by being aware, acknowledging, then taking action. So also being accountable.
Taking
to
action.
Someone, you can be accountable to yourself.
Taking action to remove yourself from the triggers so that
From
you are
the
not
situation.
giving yourself over
yes,
to it.
Yes. I would also emphasize that most people feel like when they are dealing with trauma, they are removing themselves completely from the possibility of such experience. It's not true. If you have low self-esteem because people think you are not good at doing something, maybe you go to the market and you just made a mistake and you called ugu water leaf, and the woman said, you don't know this one. You will say, even in the market, they say I don't know anything. Even in the school, they say I don't know. Look, you would still experience situations that would trigger what you're healing from.
Okay.
But being aware that it is not the true state of things in your life is also something that you need to be aware of. So this brings me to the spiritual side of it, where the knowledge of the truth, the knowledge of who God says you are, what God says you are. God says you are good. He made you and he said you are good. So first of all, everybody else does not see anything good in you, but God says you are good. There's a saying, monkey no fine, mama like him. There's something that makes you good. You see somebody who is, they say, this person is wicked. I mean, I was going to use a very touchy example, but I would refrain from that. But as some people say, oh, military people are very tough. You need to see military people and their wives, some of them.
Some of
you
them.
need to see some military men and their children. You need to see some military people and their friends. So even when you say this person is tough, they have the tendency to show love to who and what they choose to show love to. Okay, you can say, oh, my husband is very difficult. He's not emotional. He's not sensitive. He's not loving. Have you seen your husband watch Manchester play, Chelsea, Arsenal? Have you seen the passion with which he buys their jersey, he supports them, he argues down anybody who tries to bring down their team? He will bring them down. Loyalty is because even the most wicked person has the tendency to do good.
Okay.
Maybe
I need to come in here with a quick question because the stream is about to end, even though the conversation continues. Peter Otto sends in a message. He says, please, can trauma as a concept lead to low self-esteem?
Yes.
And he's saying thank you. Okay, you want to elaborate on that just a little bit before we go on a quick break?
Yes. So, like I said, let me use myself as an example. I grew up an only girl, somewhat neglected, and then being bullied all through in school. I wasn't performing well in school. Now, because I felt like people didn't want to be around me, even when I didn't know subjects in school, I was afraid to reach out to anyone to say, help me, teach me. So I was failing, and my results seemed to be my consciousness of my state of mind. So I believed I was an olodo. I believed I was not smart because the tests showed that I failed. The results showed that I failed. Meanwhile, I needed tutoring. not just tutoring, in the way that I will assimilate. There are those who learn by videos. There are those with pictorial memory. So if you use your hands to gesticulate, they will understand it. There are those who, if they are in class, they will pass. There are those that they don't need to be in class. If they read, they will pass. So I needed the right coach to understand my needs, to help me understand that, no, Joy, you are not dumb. You just needed help. So trauma led me to believe that I was not smart. For the longest time, I was certain that I was not smart. And as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So even when I will be in class and they would say, what is the past tense of ring? I know the past tense of ring is wrong, but I will think that I am wrong, so I will not say it. Then I will keep quiet, and another person will raise their hand, and they will say exactly what I wanted to say. And the teacher will say, correct. But because I had low self-esteem, I felt everything that I know was wrong. Everything that I stood for was wrong. Anything that I do is even wrong.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, then. Thank you. Let's see quickly on Facebook. Jafaru Husseini, watching live from Suleja. He says he's enjoying the show. Thank you. Madubike Emmanuel Chizoba says, good evening, Somi. Well done. Seeing today live for the first time. He says now he knows the color of my skin. Why, thank you. Thank you for the compliments. Also, Francis Namani watching live from Amagunze in Enugu State. Also saying good evening to myself and to you, Joy, and saying thank you for the good work done. All right, this is where we have to go on a quick break. But when we come back, the conversation still continues. Our guest is still with us in the studio. And to a large extent, we're going to be opening up the phone lines for questions to come in from you, whatever your thoughts are on the topic. So stay with 95.1 Nigeria Info, and we'll be right back. Very quick break. We'll be back soon.
This is Nigeria Info.